40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. It appears as though the first domino in the QB carousel will fall today. Multiple reports stating that Derek Carr is reaching an agreement, a 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. The 2023 NFL Scouting Combine is in the books. Quarterbacks took the field at Lucas Oil Stadium Saturday, and it was Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson who stole the show, setting combine records for the QB position with the 40.5-inch vertical and a 10.9 in the broad jump. Wide receivers also worked out Saturday. Former Tennessee wideout Jalen Hyatt's 40 time, clocking in at a 4.4 flat. South Carolina are SEC champions for the 7th time since 2015, staying undefeated and beating the Lady Vols 74-58 on Sunday. Tennessee wraps up the season at 23-11, heading into the NCAA women's basketball tournament. On the men's side, the Vols season ended with a 79-70 loss at Auburn Saturday, falling out of the double bye to the 5 seed in the SEC tournament. The bracket is set. Tennessee will play Thursday afternoon at Bridgestone Arena, facing the winner between Ole Miss and South Carolina. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt finished strong at home, a 77-72 win over Miss State. The Commodores are the 6th seed. They'll play the winner between LSU and Georgia on Thursday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Feels good to be back. It's been a minute since we've been back in studio, but happy to have you guys here. Hope your weekend was wonderful. A lot of stuff going on. Coming out of the NFL Combine, wrapping up yesterday. You can jump in at any point if you'd like to. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're here with you until 1 o'clock. So, NFL news right out the gate. And then we'll get to the local stuff because Jeff Simmons is publicly putting pressure on the Titans that time of year. Derek Carr, in the meantime, has just signed with the New Orleans Saints. Reportedly, he is closing in on a 4-year deal, as you heard Lucas say in his update, with the New Orleans Saints. Rappaport and Garofalo first on it from the NFL Network per sources. So that was the first team that Derek Carr visited with when he was released by the Raiders way back on Valentine's Day. And he was in Indy last week during the Combine when a lot of NFL teams were there to meet with him and also to obviously go through the process of the Combine. The Jets, the Panthers, the two teams named specifically that Derek Carr met with. The Jets now are without one of their primary options at quarterback as they look to kind of expand their footprint and ramp things up at that position heading into 2023. Derek Carr now off the board, joining the Saints' 4-year deal, keeps him from going against you if he gets signed by Carolina. So I imagine that is something that the Saints saw, the reporting around him meeting with Carolina, said, you know what, probably better that we be playing with him than without him in the division, where it's very much up for grabs, where Kyle Trask, previous to this, was the most known commodity.
Allegedly their starter in Tampa Bay.
Well, that's somebody said that at a podium somewhere last week.
Yeah, their GM did.
Yeah, well, whatever. I think that now this is something that ramps up the pressure on the Jets. It gets one of the quarterback-needy teams off the board and kind of ramps up the market for Ryan Tannehill. I think that's the thing that probably intrigues people most locally, especially with this situation where Jeff Simmons is now going to, we'll call it an escalation by deleting social media, unfollowing the Titans on social media, shutting it down, going dark, essentially, as a part of a strategy to increase discussions, to ramp up discussions where contracts are concerned, and take a different version of a similar playbook to what you've seen a lot of star players around the league do, particularly last year, A.J. Brown. So with that happening in New Orleans, I think now Tannehill very, very much becomes in play for a lot of these other teams who would consider putting together trade packages. Because what Rand Carthon said at the Combine, as every GM before him and who will come after him and who he is currently peers with will say, they are open for business on their first-round pick. And where the Titans are sitting 11th overall, they like a quarterback enough this year. If you can find the capital to get up there and to get into legitimately the quarterback draft and you can offload Tannehill, then you're talking about a completely different set of circumstances where that remodel discussion we've had kind of gets nuked. It's a remodel as long as the same quarterback's in place from where I'm concerned. I think if you talk about replacing the quarterback this year, as we have in several different circumstances, I think that takes the conversation to a different level. So we'll keep an eye on what happens now with the rest of the quarterbacks, and obviously Tannehill, free agency next week, franchise tag deadlines on the horizon. We'll see what happens with Lamar Jackson, another big part of this. Weren't we talking about last week, what do we think happens first between Carr or Jackson? And I was fairly certain that it would be Lamar.
Yeah, you said Lamar. And Derek was in Indianapolis last week. He was talking to the Panthers. He talked to the Jets and obviously the Saints.
So was Carson Wentz, apparently.
And his brother was out there talking about that he's going to take his time with this. So we had no idea what the timetable looked like on Derek Carr. But I'm wondering if Derek Carr cost himself some money in this. Because the Saints were willing to trade for Derek Carr and inherit that contract that he had with the Raiders at $40 million a year. I don't know that they're going to give him $40 million a year.
Well, I think what are we talking about for Daniel Jones?
I mean, that's the number Jones is targeting, roundabout.
45.
45, yeah.
Okay. So if Daniel Jones, a less accomplished quarterback than Derek Carr, is asking for 45, you don't think there's the potential for Derek Carr to get 40 a year in this circumstance? I think that's very real.
Well, we'll see
we don't know.
Yeah, we have no idea what the numbers are. Hopefully they come out today, but it'll be really interesting if they come out in the 30-35 range. And you're thinking Derek Carr could have just, because he declined that trade, said, no, I want to be a free agent. I want to explore my options, which is fair. That's what he wanted to do. But if he was just going to come to this conclusion, we'll see if he ended up costing himself any money.
Well, what's to say that he just came to that conclusion? What's to say that the Saints, and we'll get this information, I'm sure, at some point, but what's to say that the Saints didn't better their offer? Because once you start to see that he's interviewing with Carolina, that the Jets, Aaron Rodgers' situation is very still unclear, and he can talk all he wants on podcast appearances about if you think he's being dramatic, then don't talk about him, when literally there's an entire economy based around the discussion, the free agency, the transactions of the NFL. So yeah, if the if the two-time back-to-back MVP says something of relevance, we're probably going to talk about it and try and discern what it means.
It could also be about situation for Carr. If the Panthers are offering $5 million more annually than the Saints are, if I'm Derek Carr, I might still be leaning New Orleans because there's something built around the quarterback position there, much more so than in Carolina.
Carolina's got some pieces that are fun. I think the conversation could be had either way, because what's the thing that the Saints have been holding their ground with in the last couple of years? Been their defense. Their defense is getting old. It's very expensive. That is going to look a lot different than it has in a lot of seasons, and that's really been the thing that's been keeping them around. I know they weren't really in contention last year, and their quarterback situation was a mess with Dalton. Dalton's now a free agent. Jameis Winston is probably going to get cut, which could add a wrinkle to this. I think if Carson Wentz can get another job in the NFL, Jameis should be able to. We'll see what happens with Marcus Mariota. There's a lot of different things that have come out since the Combine, or as the Combine's gone along, that can kind of add layers to the quarterback discussion, and his teams try and jockey for this circumstance. But now, theoretically, the best free agent quarterback is off the board. And really, you're talking about the likes of Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett. We'll see Andy Dalton. That's kind of the place where the quarterback market has very, very quickly dropped to. And the idea of money, we'll see what happens with that, because I think, as Lucas said earlier, why wouldn't he just go to the Saints if they were willing to eat his contract? Well, I think that the marketplace has shown that these guys can still very much realize their value, especially with a resume like Derek Carr. I think that Ryan Tannehill could if Ryan Tannehill was cut, I think Ryan Tannehill could probably better his circumstances financially, or at least keep them status quo. Don't you? You don't think somebody would pay Ryan Tannehill somewhere between $30 and $35 million next year?
Sure, especially a team like the Jets, who if they swing and miss on Aaron Rodgers, pressure's on in New York to go get yourself a quarterback, because they've made it very, very clear they want to bring in a veteran quarterback. And if it's not Aaron Rodgers, who's it going to be? Ryan Tannehill's probably at or near the top of that list for them.
He should be. I mean, I really think for what they have on that side of the ball, and they got some decisions to make. I think Aaron Rodgers, they were going to have to move a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball. They got some very expensive cap hits coming up. C.J. Mosley, I think, is an inside linebacker, is about to count against their cap for about $20 million a season in the next couple of seasons. He's a really important piece for them, though. He's a leader on defense. In all the Jeff Simmons conversations around his contract, we haven't talked about Quinnen Williams at all. Quinnen Williams is somebody who is regarded as probably a better talent at the position than Jeff is league-wide, just because more people see him on a regular basis. I think he is a really, really good player, and you could certainly have a discussion between the two of them. But when you're talking about Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, Jeffery Simmons, Quinnen Williams is about to be in the middle of a contract situation himself. So New York's future is not totally cut and dry, where it's just, hey, if Aaron Rodgers is out there, let's trade for him and make this thing work. They've got a few hurdles to overcome themselves, and a dude who you're going to have to pay $60 million in cash up front, then figure out the cap hit afterwards. Ryan Tannehill might make a lot more sense, especially if this dude is just going to hold you hostage again, the way that he has the entire NFL for the last 3 off seasons. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on this. We're going to talk about Jeff Simmons and his posturing here in just a little bit. First to the phones, Joseph in Smyrna is next. Hey, Joseph.
Hey, Buck. Just want to kind of point out with Derek Carr going to the Saints and Rodgers possibly leaving the NFC, does this make Derek Carr possibly the best quarterback in the NFC? I mean, who's better, Kirk Cousins?
I think the argument for Jalen Hurts.
Yes,
no,
Hurts.
Don't you think, Joseph?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. Was outside of Jalen Hurts, would it be Derek Carr now?
Well, I think as long as Rodgers is in the NFC, you have to count him, and I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to get a lot more benefit of the doubt than he probably deserves at this stage. Jalen Hurts was the more effective player at the position last year. So I think Hurts, Rodgers, if you want to go Rodgers, Hurts.
Well, he was saying, let's say Rodgers is out of the NFC. He was kind of quantifying it like that.
Okay, I misheard him
Yeah,
then.
he was saying, if Rodgers is gone, does this make Carr the best quarterback in the NFC outside of Jalen Hurts? And there is an argument for that. I mean, it's either Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins, right? Unless you really like Daniel Jones or Dak Prescott.
And I mean, even though he was efficient last year, you can't say like Jared Goff.
Nah. It's all kind of muddled up in that tier.
God, the NFC is gross right now.
Yeah, the tiers are like bleeding together. Like, is Kirk Cousins in the same tier as Dak Prescott? I have no idea.
Well, this is why we leave these exercises to people who enjoy them, like Mike Sando. Mike Sando comes out with the quarterback tiers every year at various points, and there'll probably be one coming out of the combine, to be honest with you, as he talks to various people around the league. We'll probably catch up with Mike at some point. Yeah, if you were to remove Aaron Rodgers from the discussion, and forgive me for not hearing that part of your call, I think that you would have to put Derek Carr top 3 in the NFC. And I think that kind of tells you the state of, one, quarterbacking, but two, that entire conference right now as teams try and figure it out. And why that market for Ryan Tannehill just got that much more viable now that Carr's found a landing spot. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you would like to. What's it mean that Jeff Simmons has shut down his social media platforms at this point, which would mean unfollowing the team on social media, dark mode, as it were? We're going to talk about that coming up next. All right, how you want to do this, bud? Because we got breaking news.
You talking to me or Bud?
I'm talking. I suppose that's a little irony there. You want to go ahead and run me over just for the fun of it?
No, at this point, I think people have picked up on it.
Okay. Hey, guys. Bud Dupree's getting cut.
Breaking Titans news on 104.5 The Zone.
Lured me into a false sense of security there. Are you now giving the news?
You gave it before I got to it.
Okay, very good.
I was hoping to get in with the hey guys.
Bud Dupree's getting cut. Ian Rappaport. $9.35 million is about what they save. Titans go to just around $21 million now for their total cap availability. Now, effective cap space we know is different, so it's a slightly smaller number, probably knock about, I would say, $6 to $7 million off of that total figure, but still consequential for a team that needs help and probably not done yet. 2 dominoes left to fall, theoretically, in Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. Decisions to be made on those 2 players. But Bud Dupree out after 2 seasons in Tennessee.
Probably will have Titans fans taking a closer look at the pass rushing position in the draft.
Yeah, I think that very much becomes a part of the discussion now. And I know a lot of you guys like Rashad Weaver, but I do too. I think he's fine. I think he's a fine rotational player. You need better talent on the edge. Now, Rashad can develop into something that is more than just functional and more than just fresh legs. I thought that he handled the increased workload this year out of necessity as well as he could have been expected to. But you saw plenty of them. There are some deficiencies in his game. You need a better player out there to be Harold Landry's quote-unquote running mate and try and keep this pass rush whole as much as humanly possible, given that you've just invested a ton of money in Harold. Jeff is going to be the bill that's next due, and you can make decisions on that if you want to. I think it creates a very, very interesting discussion about trying to generate more draft capital and if Jeff is actually worth it to you. But we'll spend some more time on that at noon today. But cutting Bud is, at this stage, I think they were working to find a solution that might see him stay on the roster for a lesser amount of money, whether that's a straight-up pay cut, whether that was how they kind of restructure his deal. This was the first year under the terms of the contract that he was on that they had a legitimate out. And I think this is one of those contracts that, given the amount of money that came associated with Bud, not just the guarantees, but the total that he could have made that he just wasn't even close to realizing because of the amount of time that he's missed. 6 games in each season that he has been with the Titans, Bud Dupree has not been able to play in. And it's probably less than that, given the amount of times that Bud would get hurt in a game and have to miss time. So
Jordan on YouTube asks, why would they not designate him post June 1st? Save more money.
I guess they feel like they need the money now. Free agency's around the corner. And they think that there's going to be players out there. That's what this signals to me. This signals to me that they can that they think that there's going to be players available on the market that they think that they can add and that they need finances to do so. Because they don't want to, they don't want next week to sneak up on them and then be caught with their pants down. Because I think the other 2 decisions are a lot more complex. Bud was probably the easiest left on the board, right?
Yeah,
bar none.
It was Dupree and Ben Jones, and the number is much larger for Bud Dupree.
So took them a little longer to get there than the initial 4 releases that they made, but they ultimately land on the decision to release Bud Dupree to save just over $9 million. Derrick Henry, to me, would be the next decision I think they need to make, whatever that decision ends up looking like. Whether they're going to keep him at $16 million against the cap, whether they're going to work towards a financial relief situation so he can play at a lower figure, in 2023 and, potentially stay with the team beyond 2023 because this is his last year under contract, whether that is something that looks like a trade, which you've heard mentioned in a couple of different situations. Rhett Bryan, who continues to say it's just a gut feeling, but he thinks there's a real possibility that Derek gets moved this year. Jeff Darlington is on ESPN saying similar things, messaging similar things, and there is here's what I'll say about it, all right? Because I don't know how real it's going to end up being, but I do think them making the decision on Bud tells you that they're considering all options on the table to try and keep Derek first and foremost. That's what that tells me. But there's an entire economy built around Derrick Henry. It's not just as simple as Derek being traded if they were to do so. You're talking about a lot of different people who work with or around Derrick Henry throughout the course of a calendar year who are going to have to pick up their lives and move with this dude if he ends up getting traded at some point this offseason as a means of them just trying to kick this thing into an entirely different gear, one way or the other. Draft capital is at a premium for a team that needs inexpensive bodies. And right now they are super expensive. They are an older football team at this stage, and the draft capital is such that they only have 6 picks moving into this draft. So all options should be on the table, even as icky as that might feel to you at this point.
But if Derrick Henry is getting off the books, it's most likely via trade. Right?
I cannot envision a situation where they just outright cut him.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to make sense of that.
All options should be on the table, but I think if it was between keeping Derek at $16 million or cutting him and saving, I think it's around $6 million. I need to go look at his contract. But whatever the savings are associated with Derek versus keeping him at the current contract, I think they would prefer to keep him.
Especially if you're talking about the possibility, and everything is a possibility, but the possibility of moving up for a quarterback in the first round and needing to move a piece to regain some of that capital on the back end, Derrick Henry would probably be a pretty good candidate for that.
But see, here's the thing, though. I think it takes more than Derek if you're really going to get into the quarterback draft.
If you're going up to number 1, yeah, unquestionably.
I was having a conversation. I was in the Nations on Saturday. I was hanging out with a couple of people who were Titans fans, and they were asking me questions about Derrick Henry, and they brought up the idea not just 1 first-round pick, but 2 for Derrick Henry.
Come on.
Well, no, I mean, but listen, don't. Oh, come on! Like people legitimately think this dude is worth a first-round pick, much less not just a first-round pick. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a stark reality that's coming for the draft capital that you would get in return for Derrick Henry. Like I think best possible case scenario, because they're not whatever team assumes Derrick Henry's contract, if they were to do so, it would be $10 million, not $16, against their cap, whichever team would trade for Derek at this point. So it's not as expensive for another team to take him on as it would be for the Titans to keep him against theirs. But if you could get a 3rd-round pick for that dude, I think that's best possible case scenario at this point. Like, if you could come away with a 3rd and a 7th, I think that would be the ideal Derrick Henry trade.
Is there a running back in this league that could be dealt for a first-round pick?
Well, what did McCaffrey just go to? I mean, McCaffrey wasn't a first.
It was a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th. And then a 5th in 2024.
A 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th.
I mean, it's a great haul, but not a first-round pick.
And San Francisco just does not seem to care about their draft picks that way. Like how many did they give up for Trey Lance? Something like 3 first-round picks?
That worked for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, to try and realize that window in as big a way as humanly possible.
And they are very much in that window, San Francisco.
But so is Buffalo that team? I don't think that Buffalo is going to look around and say, a first-round pick or even that many as McCaffrey went for. Because I just think McCaffrey and Shanahan make so much more sense. Like, I think you could get Kyle Shanahan over a little more on Kyle Shanahan than you might on the average coach, because he's going to look at Christian McCaffrey. He's going to think, that dude is perfect. I can do 17,000 different things with him in a way that Kyle Shanahan is not going to make that trade for Derrick Henry. On the same token, right? Derrick Henry would be of value to any team, but not in the way that I think the 49ers were looking at McCaffrey saying, you know what, we may overextend ourselves to try and get this player because he can be really special within our system. So this is the kind of stuff that I think everybody has to prepare themselves for, no matter what version of the conversation it is. Now, if you're talking legitimately about the quarterback draft, I think that we need to be talking more in the Jeff Simmons range of player. Not to say that, I mean, Jeff, I think objectively is a better player at his position for what teams would be trying to get after Derek for, right? It's one of the most valuable things in football right now, the ability to pressure from the interior. So if you're really doing this, if we're really talking about, I mean, look at the Preds. Like the Preds are talking about something completely different. It's an absolute fire sale over there. We're not talking about that with the Titans just yet. And Rand Carthon said vehemently on this radio show that he is not somebody who is going to tank an NFL season. You've made the decisions that are easiest for anybody to make. Bud, go back and forth on a little bit. Fine. Now is where the complexities start. Because it's not just Tannehill, it's Derrick Henry, and it's Jeffery Simmons. And how important are those two to the future sustainability of this football team, not just the immediate?
And when it comes to the number one pick, what would be more attractive to the Bears? Let's say the Bears are still in on Jalen Carter. When all the dust settles on that, the Chicago Bears want to angle to trade away that number one pick and be in a position to where they could draft Jalen Carter and just set the interior of their defensive line for years to come. But what would be more attractive to the Chicago Bears? Ending up in a spot where they could draft Jalen Carter in the top 10 or Jeffery Simmons?
I mean,
understanding that
given the cap space that they have, but they have the most cap space in football by a mile.
All the space.
That is one team that would not even feel the Jeffery Simmons contract.
Like that would.
I mean, they could go above and beyond what the kind of asking point for Jeff. They could do a God tier offer and make Jeff have to say no. Put Jeff in a position where he couldn't say no.
So the Texans have the picks, right? Texans have all the picks to offer the Bears, but that would get their attention. Jeffery Simmons. And I wonder if a deal does get done with Jeffery Simmons, if that tells us about the Titans' approach to potentially trading to number one. It's hard to imagine that deal getting done over the Texans or the Colts if Jeffery Simmons is long-term staying here in Nashville.
We can talk about it. 615-737-1045. This is I think why they're such a fascinating case study, them being the Titans. There are so many different avenues that they can go down this and, go about this rather. And it can tell us a lot about what the approach of this new kind of regime is. Because it's not really a new regime. It's Rand Carthon and it's Chad Brinker. And I really don't know what Chad Brinker does yet. I mean, I know what the idea for Chad Brinker is as the assistant general manager. But other than those two guys, everything else is the same. Now, you might see some changes made with the front office structure a couple of days, maybe weeks before the draft. Once, wholesale, the draft process for them is done and they can start to evaluate, okay, I like the way that this area scout did their job, or I like the way that our director of pro personnel handled this element of the offseason process, or I didn't necessarily like this, right? Trimming the fat, the thing that Rand Carthon talked to us about on the show on Wednesday. But right now, everything but those two individuals is intact. So these decisions are going to fall squarely on them, and that's why the Jeff Simmons stuff coming out today, or I guess yesterday evening is when Teron Davenport brought attention to the fact that Jeffery Simmons had just completely shut down his social media platforms. It is ramping up the pressure on the Titans, even if it's not the strategy of Kyler Murray, let's say, where Kyler Murray kept all his social media, just deleted everything Cardinals related and unfollowed the team. There are variants now to the different ways that teams, well, not teams, but players and their representation, how the representation will coach them on how to kind of slowly amp up the pressure on a team that they're trying to get a deal done with, or bring attention to the fact that the player and their representation is messaging, putting pressure on the team that they're trying to get a deal done with, which then creates a market for other teams to look around and say, hey, if you're not necessarily happy with your circumstance, maybe we could put you in a better position.
It also just feels like that's just what you do now.
But you say that as if that's applicable to every NFL player positioning for a contract. You're talking about a very, very specific level of player. So I don't think you can just umbrella statement. That's just what you do now. When no, it's not just what you do. It's what A.J. Brown, Jeffery Simmons, Kyler Murray, players at the top of the heap can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're operating in that
I'm not talking about
space,
like Christian Kirk or something.
Well, I mean, Christian Kirk didn't need to.
Yeah, I know.
He didn't need to. He got the luxury tax offer from Jacksonville.
Oh, Bud Dupree tweeted and then quickly deleted, but tweeted that he found out on Twitter. Rap sheet.
Sorry, Bud. That's the business. It does really open up this draft capital conversation because now they have more needs. I mean, we knew that they probably needed to address depth along that defensive front. We've talked about the idea that Danico Autry is in the last year of his contract as well. The idea that it's not just, defensive line depth that they could use, but they need viable options beyond Bud and Harold when Bud was still on the roster. Now they just need another starting outside linebacker. They need another starting edge player. I don't think Rashad Weaver's it just yet. 615-737-1045. Chuck in Clarksville is next. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Buck. Hey, listen to your discussion on Derrick Henry. And believe me, I don't want to move. I love Derrick Henry. But if you were, I would think the Bears would be the logical choice, switching 1 and 11 picks and maybe giving them 1 in 2024 or 2024 because Justin Fields and Derrick Henry, that'd be a hell of a backfield. And if you're going in that direction, I think the Bears make that sense. Now, on the front with Jeffery Simmons, I think it's smart for him to get off of Twitter and everything like that because you know how our fans get when there's a negotiation. They blistered A.J. Brown during that whole negotiation and probably caused some of that hurt feelings. So I think he's doing a smart thing, getting off Twitter and off the Facebook and everything, too, on the Titans and not have to listen to our crazy fans.
Thank you, Chuck. Just not even give Titans Twitter the opportunity to get involved, right? I mean, AJ seems to roll around in it a little bit. Like he seems to really enjoy that. Most people don't. It's very counterintuitive, the behavior. Now, well, let's talk about this a little bit. Obviously, we have other things to get into today, but this is where the direction of the news is going to take us. So we can discuss the idea of what Chuck just brought up. Does a Bears deal for Derrick Henry make sense? How viable is that actually? Or is there a different discussion that needs to be had around assets on the Titans roster? I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So the Titans have cut Bud Dupree, according to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. What is the ripple effect for that, across this roster? Well, start mocking some edge players in your mock drafts, kids, as you get closer and closer to that in the coming months. Makes the conversation around number 11 overall a lot different. And then the idea, draft capital-wise, what else do you need to do? Not just for the purposes of trying to get that draft capital back, but financial relief. You are still not in great shape given the amount of need across this roster if you want to actually get this thing back into a more competitive shape. It's not just a top-end player need. It's not just a starting player need. There are depth issues all over this roster that were exposed over the course of the last 2 seasons. More so last year, of course. So now with Bud out, Jeff, Derek, and Tannehill, the next 3 main pieces on the chessboard, what do? What makes the most sense to put this thing in the best possible position to succeed into the future while maintaining that competitiveness that Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel keep telling you they're placing at the forefront?
And it's Michael Silver of Bally Sports that's reporting that the Titans are shopping Derrick Henry.
Oh, there's an actual report?
Yes. Yeah, now it's starting to get aggregated. I just saw Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio aggregated it.
Wow.
Bally Sports.
Well, yeah. When did Mike Silver go to Bally Sports? I know he was at the NFL Network for
I'm not
forever.
sure. But I mean, it's not just about Derrick Henry. It's just kind of monitoring NFL stars that are potentially being shopped, and Derrick Henry is one of them. I'll find the blurb here.
Okay. Yeah, let me know what the reporting of Mike Silver is there, because that would then, that would escalate it from gut feeling and, hypothetical situations that are being posed on talk shows to actual, he's been shopped before, Derek has. I don't know how many people remember that. But Derek was on the trading block, and they wanted a second-round pick for him while he was still on his rookie deal. That, I think, was the 2018 trade deadline.
Yeah, before Derrick Henry became what we know to be
when Derrick
Henry.
Henry was losing snaps to David Fluellen. That was a thing that happened not that long ago. So it's not the first time that they've tried to shop him for value, but this is a much different circumstance that they face right now.
So the article's about the quarterback position. It's about Aaron Rodgers. It's about Lamar Jackson. And then near the end, Mike Silver says, keep an eye on this. If the divide continues or worsens, the 26-year-old quarterback, talking about Lamar Jackson, could absolutely try to force his way out by requesting a trade. To be sure, trade talk was rampant at the Combine. According to my sources, all of them current general managers, Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry, Los Angeles Rams cornerback Jalen Ramsey, and Arizona Cardinals receiver DeAndre Hopkins among the players who have been shopped in recent days. So that is Silver is saying he's hearing that from current GMs.
I mean, that was the big. So the 2 things that were most discussed at the Combine around the Titans were who the hell. That's the question, at least that I got the most when we were walking around or in restaurants or when we went out on Wednesday specifically. Who the hell is playing quarterback for that team next year? And then beyond that, what are they doing with Derrick Henry? So this is what I think what everybody's been trying to prepare the fan base for, because now you're talking about a different kind of Band-Aid that you're about to rip off if you actually move this dude. It's not that it's inevitable. It's not that there's a for sure, like this is a sign that this is going to happen. It's just something that lets you know they're very much considering this. And they should be, by the way. That should come as no surprise to Titans fans. None whatsoever. It's the life cycle that a lot of teams go through. And there's going to be a degree of coping that comes along with him because he's legitimately the kind of player that you seek to go to games to watch. What else is getting you to Nissan Stadium right now beyond Derrick Henry? Like if I'm a football fan, because the Titans are in a weird market, right, where so many people are transplants, come in with other NFL teams, and then they latch on to the local ones because they make a run. The Preds go to the Stanley Cup. They keep a couple extra people. After that, the rest of it turns into a bit of a fad, right? But you had that one season where you got a couple of extra people to really appreciate what it was that they were doing at Bridgestone that season. 19 was that for the Titans, and Derrick Henry was the focal point. Derrick Henry is a damn near unprecedented player in the league. He's an NFL record-setting player at his position and is, very capable of continuing to build a Hall of Fame resume if he so chooses. And also, he's the best trade bait that they probably have right now that would do them the least amount of damage. Moving Jeff is a much different discussion. Moving Derrick, is that not their best card to play? Of all the different things, I don't necessarily think that it's moving Tannehill.
Could you get more? Who would you get the biggest haul? It would depend on the team.
Yeah.
So it's hard to play this game.
I mean,
but I was going to say,
I think straight up you can look at like which move that makes the most sense for them, that causes them the least amount of competitive harm, and nets the most amount of draft capital. Of the three players that we're talking about, Tannehill, Jeff, Derrick. It's Derrick.
It's Derrick until you run into a quarterback desperate team, until you run into the Jets, who have swung and missed on Derek Carr, have swung and missed on Aaron Rodgers, and are looking around with Zach Wilson still on their roster and not fulfilling their offseason goal of bringing in a veteran quarterback. And that changes things.
We can circle back to this. We'll let you hear some comments from Rand Carthon at the Combine. We'll talk about some other discussions that were had at the Combine. And, of course, the latest on the Titans, who have made a release reportedly this morning of Bud Dupree. Your phone calls are welcome, 615-737-1045. What does this mean? What's the next move that makes the most sense for Tennessee at this point, given what we're talking about? Derrick Henry, Jeffery Simmons, Ryan Tannehill. 1045 The Zone's 2023 Spring Golf Classic is coming up. It's presented by Ferguson HVAC, April the 10th at Greystone Golf Club. Teams are now limited, so purchase your team right now before they're gone. To purchase a team, visit 1045thezone.com. Come hang out with us. We're going to be doing the live shows out there all day, all 4 shows, and I'm sure a fair amount of the on-air folks are going to participate in the early flights at the very least. It's always a great time at Greystone Golf Club. We're going to talk about the Combine. We'll keep you updated, take your phone calls on the Titans coming up next.
It is 10:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Another Titans cap casualty has come down, as Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reporting today. The Titans plan to release outside linebacker Bud Dupree. That move should free up over $9 million in cap space for the Titans. And the first domino in the quarterback carousel looks like it will fall today. Multiple reports that Derek Carr is finalizing a 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints, and he is the first starting quarterback established in the NFC South. Titans defensive tackle Jeffery Simmons created some buzz over the weekend when he deleted the Titans and deleted his social media accounts. ESPN's Dan Graziano reported this week the Titans and Simmons have had discussions about a long-term deal. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour of a very newsy Monday. Welcome in, welcome back. Lovely to have you here. Hope everybody is having a great start to their morning. Lucas and I are here with you until 1 o'clock. And the cogs of the NFL offseason are going to keep us going. Derrick Henry being shopped. Jeff Simmons deleting his social media as he prepares for contract negotiations. And apparently his mental health. Smart play. Bud Dupree being released. We are taking your phone calls on this, of course, and dissecting all the Titans offseason moves. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. At some point, we're going to get to players who improved their stock at the NFL Combine. Quarterbacks in particular were fascinating to watch, and we may be a part of the quarterback draft very soon here locally, as the discussion that we were having earlier, the idea of trading Henry as the best card that the Titans have to play becomes more and more real the closer we get to this, or the further we get through this offseason. I think it's funny that Mike Silver reports it, or Mike Silver puts it in as just a footnote in his, probably, what is this, like a combine notebook that he put together?
Talking quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks specifically?
Yeah. And it was just a name in there with DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey.
Okay. So the three biggest non-quarterback names, but you haven't heard Derek discussed as widely as the other two as trade targets, right? You've heard Hopkins and the idea that it makes sense for Arizona to move on. You've heard Jalen Ramsey and his own messaging on social media around, saying goodbye to LA and Rams fans and, preemptively, but that being very much on a table for a team who needs their own draft capital after foregoing so many years of it. I think it's funny that Rhett Bryan says gut feeling about it, 2 weeks ago? And, yeah, locally it causes a little bit of fuss, and people get their feathers ruffled a little bit. Mike Silver puts it in a notebook at the end of a column and said, all of a sudden it's real.
To be fair, I have not seen a lot of ruffled feathers over the Henry stuff. Like I was saying that you immediately pushed back against me on that, saying, "Are you kidding me? People will go nuts, go up in arms. Is the only reason they're going to that stadium." I feel like the majority of reactions from Titans fans is, "Yeah, I get it. It's probably time."
I think that there is it's just about where you are in the life cycle of your Titans fandom, right? Are you at the point where you saw what this team was? Now, I think there's two different discussions that we're having here, right? Because it's not just about the general Titans fan, like somebody who follows the team, pays attention to the construction, watches them primarily on TV and doesn't go to games. Or maybe as a Christmas present, maybe a birthday present, you go to a Titans game once a season, twice a season, something like that. Maybe you go to a road game, whatever.
Win some tickets on the Zone.
Sure, we got them. we may have to be giving a lot more away.
Yeah,
if they trade Derrick Henry, but then
giving away 4 Nashville SC tickets on Blaine and Mickey today.
Okay, save your. Oh well, that's a good plug. Listen to Blaine and Mickey later. Meanwhile, you're talking about that kind of Titans fan economy versus the diehards, versus the season ticket members, versus the core of what that business model is, right? PSLs, season ticket renewals, jersey sales, concessions, everything, and how much of that is driven single-handedly by I want to go watch Derrick Henry play for my football team on Sundays. I want to go watch this human mountain of a man out there bouncing defensive backs and linebackers off the turf and running for 90-yard touchdowns, even though he hasn't done that for a while. But still, like Derrick on these screen passes when he catches it and runs for 60. Now, he fumbles it at the end the last couple of games, but that break, that enticement is still there. So if you talk about the reasonable, rational Titans fan who isn't that financially invested in what it is that this team does on a week-in, week-out basis, that's one thing. If you're talking about the core diehards, the people who listen to us yammer about the Titans on March the 6th and who are heavily trafficking and over the cap and all these different things to try and figure out how their team can make this thing work, the diehards are going to be pissed if they move that dude. Kenny in Fairview is next. Hey, Kenny.
Yeah, I just want to start off by saying, is this the same Brian that told everyone to trust John Robertson and trust the process and all of this? I mean, it wasn't 2 years ago where we seen Mike Vrabel get up from his seat when we traded AJ pissed off, so the thought of us trading either, Big Jeff or Derek just doesn't sit right just because of that fact alone. I don't think Amy would go for it. I don't think Vrabel would sign off on it. I think the way that we make cap space or try to, alleviate that situation is maybe extend Derek or extend, Tannehill and trade back from 11 because I think there's going to be a team that wants to move up to try to draft, maybe Anthony Richardson or somebody else. So maybe we can move back, pick up a couple more picks, improve the offensive line.
Hey, Kenny, let me just put this in front of you, though. You don't think that Amy and Mike would sign off on it, but the reporting is that he's actively being shopped. And that's not being done undercover. That's something that they're signing off on, the idea that, hey, we're going to look at what we can get for Derek.
Yeah, but that's also from Bally Sports. You know what I'm saying? That's not like.
Now, Mike Silver is a very, very credible reporter. I appreciate what you're saying, and thank you for the call. But Mike Silver is somebody who has a very, very long and decorated resume of journalism. That is not somebody whose reporting I would question.
It is Lions season. It's always worth throwing that out there.
Absolutely.
Everything is taken with a grain of salt. GMs are putting stuff out there to influence other talks.
Hey, and by the way, shopping is very nebulous.
Yeah.
It's just we're listening to offers. It's like Rand Carthon getting up at the podium. This is the best comparison that I would make. Rand Carthon gets up at the podium. He's asked about 11 overall. What's he say? Open for business. Rand Carthon is asked in a private moment, at the hotel lobby of the JW Marriott in Indianapolis around the Combine. Hey, Derrick Henry, what are you offering?
Open for business.
Open for business. That's how you should take these. Again, the emotional attachment that you have, it's not to say that we're not talking about trading him. He's not getting traded yet. He may not get traded. But the idea that they can't listen to offers on this dude, come on. Take whatever you got. Russell Wilson actively tried to incite a coup inside the Seahawks organization. You know what Seattle said instead of firing Pete Carroll and John Schneider? They said, hey, Denver, what you got?
Give us all the picks.
Give us all of the picks, and we'll send you this malcontent at quarterback, and he'll be good for 5 wins maybe because he's washed apparently at 31.
So, but Henry is lumped in with DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey in this.
Yeah. Those two are real.
Those two are real. That is part of why it's interesting. You know that 2 of those 3 are very real. That's like they're likely being shot.
Okay, so if I came to you and say I'm gonna try and think of a starting NFL player that would get you to pick up that would catch your attention. If I said to you that Andrew Wingard, right, the safety for the Jags, is on the trading block. They're taking offers for Andrew Wingard. Mike Silver ain't putting that in his notebook. You know what I'm saying? If you hear that Derrick Henry, they're shopping Derrick Henry, yeah, it warrants being put in the same discussion as DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey.
That doesn't mean that he heard those 3 names from the same person.
No. Here's what it is, okay? There's a lot of people in very, very small, confined spaces over the course of the week in Indianapolis. And you are going to hear any number of discussions being had, real or hypothetical, that can impact the NFL offseason. That's why every time like when you log onto the internet today, you go to ESPN.com, you go to Bally Sports, you go to whatever, A to Z Sports, whatever the case may be, Combine notebook type stuff, yeah? It's just you're hearing general discussions being had when the entire league is together at dinner or drinks at some point throughout the course of a 7-day span, 6-day span. And so when you hear that, and however you want to take that, they can shop whoever they want. They can shop Big Jeff. There is no player that is untouchable on this roster, right? There's not a single player who I'm looking at and saying, under no circumstances can the Tennessee Titans listen to offers on that player, no matter how outrageous the draft capital or the whatever the trade offer on the other side of it, no matter how obscene it is, there's not a player on the roster that they should hear offers for. No,
but didn't we say that about AJ to a degree?
What?
Like, you got to get this done. This guy has got to stay in
I
Nashville.
feel differently about AJ.
Yeah.
I feel substantial. Quarterback or game-changing offensive player. A.J. Brown is a game-changing offensive player. Derrick Henry has been that in his career. Derrick Henry is still a very productive player. Derrick Henry was also a very big part of a team that lost 7 straight games, okay? That's not the same thing to me. A.J. Brown is a greater value in today's NFL than Derrick Henry is. That's not changed. It is a different conversation than the one that we would have been having last year. And I think, one, that you have the results in hand, understanding he stayed healthy in Philadelphia in ways that he did not in Tennessee. So I understand I'm playing a little bit of the results there. But there is no question a wide receiver of that caliber is more value than a running back, no matter how special the running back has been across his NFL career. Bam in Nashville is next. Hey, Bam.
What up, though, man?
What's happening?
Man, listen, all I'm going to say is this. If Derek leaves this city, Rand better run. Because the fans are going to, like, again, who are you going to put in the seats then? Like, the fans, the whole city rallies around. If they keep, okay, let me say this. If they cut Derek and keep Tannehill, that's going to be
No. You're talking about something different. You're talking about cutting Derek is not something that we're talking about here.
Okay,
Bam.
well, trading Derek, which way. If Derek ain't here this year and you've already got rid of AJ, you've already got rid of, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be a mutant. I'm trying to tell you. It's like seats are going to start decreasing. I mean, especially if you're not replacing him with the valuable. Don't nobody right now want to see a complete rebuild. Like, if you just don't blow it up, just blow it all up at one time. Just shoot everybody at once. You know what I'm saying? But this season, it's starting to look dimmer and dimmer, man. I don't know. And, I'm a diehard Titans fan. But if you trade Derrick Henry, I'm trying to tell you, man, Nissan Stadium this year is going to be like blah every week.
Oh, don't tell me. You tell the other guy.
I mean, look, I feel like people are picturing, like, dealing Derrick Henry as the Titans as we saw them in 2022, just without Derrick Henry. Trading Derrick Henry would mean angling and moving towards a greater purpose of winning in the future. Mm-hmm. And maybe they would, take some shots on the front end with attendance in 2023, but it's not like trading Derrick Henry just means it's more of the same. It's the exact same Titans team. It's Ryan Tannehill throwing to NWI and Treylon Burks just without Derrick Henry in the backfield.
Yeah,
like,
it's 2021.
Yeah, so what?
You know what you were in 2021? You were a successful running attack, and you were the number 1 overall seed.
So, but what would get Titans fans in seats? It would be whatever moves they make auxiliary to the Derrick Henry trade. What kind of value they get for the Henry trade. I don't know if it means moving up and getting a quarterback in the draft. I don't know if it means, they're definitely going to add another wide receiver. But the point is that moving Derrick Henry does not just mean the Titans for eternity will just be Ryan Tannehill throwing to NWI, same offense, just without 22. Like, there will be a greater plan involved if they do move Derrick Henry.
You know what this is a different version of? Think about it. Bam represents a contingent of the population, and Bam may be serious about not going to Titans games anymore if Derrick Henry's not on the roster. But you know what it's a different version of? It's the kind of people that said they were never going to watch the NFL again after Colin Kaepernick or taking a knee, right? Like, it's a different version of that same discussion. Most people still watching football. It's just, are you going to be as committed, as fired up about it? You're going to be, you take certain stands because of your principles, whatever those might be. And it's not even a discussion I'm having. I'm just saying the idea that people were going to turn off football because of those kind of circumstances, it wasn't real. Derrick Henry is going to hurt in real time. It may piss you off. You may skip a season or two. And at some point, you're going to be bored on a Sunday. You're going to turn on a Titans game and watch them. More of your phone calls on this coming up next. We'll also do some stock up, stock down from the NFL Combine. Circle back to the Big Jeff conversation for those who have not been updated on the defensive tackles strategies on social media or lack thereof. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Mike Silver of Bally Sports is reporting that the Tennessee Titans are shopping Derrick Henry as they explore different ways to get their salary cap in a better spot. This was a part of his national column for Bally Sports, talking about the idea that there are different quarterback discussions being had, different teams exploring various options. Of course, you know, if you've been following the news from earlier today, Derek Carr has signed a 4-year deal to go to New Orleans. That's a big domino that went down. But at the bottom of Mike Silver's column, he mentioned the thing that we've been talking about locally for about 2 weeks. The Derrick Henry situation is not on solid ground here in Tennessee. And that should they get a reasonable enough offer to move him, they're open to it. I think that that's going to send a lot of I think that's going to send a lot of people, you know, into different mindsets, right? What was the atmosphere like when they traded Steve McNair? When they pulled the whole thing. Now again, this is we're dealing with two different generations of sports experience, right? I think there's a couple of factors that come into a conversation like this. One, people, I think younger generations, and this has just been discussed by networks and how people consume different things, and are you watching games versus catching highlights on social media, on Instagram Reels, whatever. I think there is a sense that younger people beyond millennials, Gen Z and otherwise, are less like attached to their sports teams, are less diehard about their sports teams than generations previous. I think consumption habits have kind of changed that, where it's fractured, and it just makes it a little easier to not be as committed to those kind of things. Two, I think that social media not being around or being as much a part of the news cycle for Steve, and when they cut Eddie, impacts a lot of the reaction around those two in particular. Because Steve getting traded to the Ravens, getting locked out of the Titans facility when he was trying to work out, Eddie getting cut and going to the Cowboys, those are two of the most tortured moments, I think, on the Titans fan timeline. Derek would probably resonate in a similar way, even if he hasn't had the same level of success, right? Those guys made it to a Super Bowl. They were the first members of the Tennessee Titans. Even though they were drafted by the Houston Oilers, they were the faces most associated with that team coming here and playing here. At the same time, the moves that were made after those two, there were varying levels of competitiveness. They had good seasons under quarterbacks like Vince Young, despite how quickly that thing went off the rails. There were different versions of the Titans that kind of messed around and got close, but never an era of the team that's discussed with the same kind of reverence that Eddie and Steve are. This latest version is not going to be talked about in those same heights, but Derrick Henry is somebody who's very, very emotionally connected to the community, the fan base, and the recent success that they've had. He's been as big a part of it as any player on that roster, any coach, any, ownership member, whatever the case may be. And yet, if that's the best thing for the health of your franchise moving forward, of all of your remaining options, right? It's the best of bad options. Because they're not necessarily going to be a better football team without Derek, but if they feel they can replace the production, hang on to number 11 overall. If you draft Bijan Robinson, now you're working with a much, much more tolerable financial situation, and probably dealing with a player who you can leave out on the field more often. Bijan Robinson is the only player in this draft class considered a true third or all three downs back.
The only first-round prospect at running back.
By consensus.
And it's a deep running back class.
And the running backs are fun, but by consensus, Bijan Robinson is the only one special enough to be a first-round pick. The combine has not helped any of those guys substantially enough. Pro days, I don't think, are going to matter as much to that. Bijan Robinson is really the only one we're talking about. If they do this, if they get picks, if they get Bijan Robinson, let's say, and they weasel their way into either another first-round draft pick or another second-round draft pick, something associated with the cost of moving Derek, or the bounty that you would get back moving Derek, whatever that looks like, even if it's not Christian McCaffrey level, then you're probably not going to feel as bad about it once you see that this offense is still producing at a relative level, and it's just not the guy that you most associate with that success doing it.
That's what I'm saying. People are picturing the 2022 Titans just without Derrick Henry, as what it would look like if they were to move Derrick Henry. You make those moves to get better, not to get worse. You would think there would be a plan around that. So the scenario you just said, let's just say that. It's a hypothetical. Titans get an extra first-round pick. They're able to move up. They're able to get a quarterback. Let's say that in 2023, C.J. Stroud and Bijan Robinson are members of the Tennessee Titans. In a crazy hypothetical world.
Oh, no.
That wouldn't put butts in seats?
Well,
you're telling me that wouldn't put butts in seats?
If you, I would say Stroud and Bijan Robinson being on the roster would mean that they had given up almost every other draft pick to get those two players.
That's true.
That would be tough. But I understand
just C.J. Stroud. Like, even if C.J. Stroud's just on the roster, it shows a plan forward, even if that doesn't include Derrick Henry.
It gives Titans fans, I think, that here's the inner conflict, right? It's, I love Derrick Henry. I hate the way that you play football as a Titans fan. And I'm not speaking for you guys. I'm just saying, like, that's the conflict that I see the most often. They're archaic. They run the football in a passing league. They run it more on first down than any team known to man, any team other than the 85 Bears or something like that, right? And you want them to modernize. You want them to advance. You want them to have better quarterback play. But there's Derrick Henry, and I love that guy. And he had 2,000 yards in a season, and he could probably do it again if we just fix the offensive line a little bit. We're just right there. Just right there. But that's the inner conflict.
Moving Henry doesn't mean, all right, Hassan Haskins, come on down. This is your show. Like, that's not what that means.
Well, I mean, theoretically, it could.
It could, but
like, I don't think that's a bad. Like, okay, Hassan Haskins, I was not overwhelmingly impressed with. I know they liked him on special teams, whatever. I'm talking about playing running back. I'm not saying that Hassan Haskins is the answer, and that's why I'm comfortable with the situation like this. I'm just saying, like, many of you made a case to us to keep Deontay Foreman because he turned into baby Derrick Henry, ignoring the fact that Deontay Foreman did what in Carolina this year? He had a couple of good games.
He had a nice year in Carolina.
Still, like, okay, Deontay Foreman was literally sitting on a couch when they called him like 6 or 7 weeks into the season. No, I think closer to 9 or 10 weeks into the season whenever Derek broke his foot. And they got it done with Deontay Foreman. You're not telling me you can't find another Deontay Foreman out there?
Man, he was almost a 1,000-yard rusher.
This year?
Foreman. Yeah, he had 914 yards.
Well, let me not discredit Carolina because they really did a good job towards the end of the season.
They ran the ball well, and he wasn't like a bell cow. I mean, they were splitting carries pretty routinely, almost hit 1,000 yards.
Okay, let me not be unfair to Deontay Foreman that way. Good for him, by the way, earning another opportunity in the league like that to get paid. But still, let's go to the phones. Dean in Franklin has been waiting. Hey, Dean.
Hey, guys. Love your show. Really enjoyed listening to you guys. Listen, Amy, Rand, and Mike and the Titans are all doing some great moves so far, changing the turf to match their practice turf to release also some cap room. With regard to Tannehill, obviously he's the best available quarterback out there. There's no one else that's out there that's going to do the things that he's capable of doing. And with the King, people need to realize the game has changed. With the likes of the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Bills, it's clear that we can't win a championship with a generational running back. Teams are going to key in on him, and that's what they've done over the years, even with his 2,000-yard season. So we need a modern offense with fast receivers, big and fast tight ends. So we're long overdue to do the same thing as those teams that I mentioned. And we might be able to get a blockbuster trade for Derrick Henry, like a Pro Bowl wide receiver and a first rounder or a couple second rounders. I mean, NFL players work out together all the time, but when Von Miller worked out with Derrick Henry, it was clear that he let everybody know, the world know, that Buffalo was interested in Derrick Henry. So, they got a 26th pick in the draft in the first round in 2023. So, I mean, who's to say that 26 the first round at number 26 wouldn't be on the card for them, and maybe one of their wide receivers.
Thanks for the call, Dean. They're not going to get a Pro Bowl wide receiver and a first-round pick for Derrick Henry, but I understand the point that you're trying to make.
Especially not from the Bills, who have a need at wide receiver.
And listen, I think it would be a tough sell for the Titans to give that up to Buffalo, especially given what you're now competing against, because Buffalo is one of the teams that you're trying to get past, not give them the ammunition to continue to be better than you.
And Buffalo has been brought up a lot as a candidate if a team were to make a move for Derrick Henry. And I get it. You'd rather give it to 22 on 4th and 1 than let your quarterback do it. But Henry's a volume carrier, right? Like, most of the time, Henry needs 20, 25 plus carries to have a big impact in a game. I wouldn't really see him getting that in Buffalo. That'd be an interesting landing spot for me.
They don't, and it's incumbent upon Josh Allen to give him the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, Josh Allen does so much just backyard, like 8th grade. It's what makes Josh Allen crazy, that he can, like, 8th grade playground his way down the field if he needs to, beyond just bombing it 70 yards. Like, he'll just take it and run and level a couple of dudes and be satisfied with that when a play breaks down. Like, there has to be a willingness to kind of remove some of that from Josh Allen, which you don't necessarily want to do.
I think you'd rather get, when you're telling you got to jam it into the line of scrimmage and force your way into a massive humanity to push across this first down marker or goal line, you'd probably rather Derrick Henry do that than your quarterback do that. I feel like Josh Allen, it would behoove Josh Allen to let somebody else do that.
It's a different variation of the Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger conversation, where they can take the hits, where they can escape, where they can't, where they'll get right back up after you knock them down because they're bigger, faster, stronger than you, until Ben Roethlisberger starts to feel like, I think one defensive lineman described it as hitting a trash bag filled with broken glass, basically, at the end of his career. So, yeah, the longevity of Josh Allen is something that's in play here. And Buffalo makes a lot of sense. Again, it's about trading that dude in conference. Now, I don't think it's, if they were to trade him to the Bills, I don't think it's as catastrophic as, say, the Packers moving Aaron Rodgers within the NFC and that coming back to haunt them, if that was to be the case.
I don't think that's, I think they've made it clear if you were to move, it would be the AFC.
The Packers. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I don't think the Titans are going to have some kind of NFC or bust mandate for Derrick Henry. Like, Derrick has to go to the NFC or we're not moving him. It's a different kind of transaction that way. Let's go to Blake in Florida next. Hey, Blake.
Hey, Buck, man. I appreciate y'all having me on. If you don't mind, can I stay on the line a couple minutes just so I can hear what y'all say about it?
Sure.
I think this is a terrible idea. With Steve McNair, he was on the decline, and I remember being in the stands and fans just calling for him to be gone. They were calling for the next guy. So Derrick Henry, I can't say he's not in his prime anymore, or that he is, but you've got a solid chance to win every time he's out there on the field. This dude has kept it close with teams like Kansas City and Cincinnati and all these other teams your last caller talked about trying to keep pace with. He keeps pace with them. But, I mean, we'll go back to the way it was with Mariota and Derrick Henry. If you can't throw the ball down the field and keep the pocket clean, they're just going to key off on Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And if they go and trade this guy, you have committed to just completely gutting this franchise and starting back over. I mean, I thought the goal was to win the division, not pull a John Robinson Part 2. He's under contract. Why get rid of it? I understand it's expensive, but don't Jay Robinson.
Well, I think the idea that I come back to is sell high. Sell high before the fall inevitably comes. Now, I have no idea when Derrick Henry is going to fall off. It could happen in 3 years. It could happen in 5 years. It could happen next year. These things are very, very sudden in professional sports, where I'm looking around at how quickly Drew Brees fell off a cliff. Or, I mean, Tom Brady is not a good example because he's lasted longer than any professional athlete. But wide receivers are like this, where all of a sudden it just happens and A.J. Green ceases to be A.J. Green because Julio. Oh, my God, Julio. But even Julio, like, he could still do that. It's just physically the hamstrings, like every time he tried to cut or plant or do something sudden, the way that he's done so long across the course of his career at that size, like, his body just doesn't hold up.
Yeah, and it's not an issue right now with Henry.
No, the broken foot is done. Like, you don't have to worry about the broken foot.
And that was never a case of body not holding up, right? That's just a kind of a freak thing where someone falls on your foot the wrong way and it broke your metatarsal.
Well, no, it's a stress fracture, so that's a buildup over time. But that usage could go back to high school, right? Like, that's not putting, like, encapsulating it in the 2021 season and saying they handed him the ball so much in 21 that his foot broke.
But you're probably not going to get more value for Derrick Henry than you would this offseason.
I am of the opinion, when it comes to the reconstruction of football teams, that even if it hurts, if it's Derrick Henry, if it's Jarrell Casey, you sell high on those players when they have the most possible value to avoid the catastrophic fall off. So you don't look at a bloated contract for a player who can't produce at whatever point that happens and say, you know what? Damn, I wish I would have done that trade. More often than not, it's going to work out in your favor because you're not just in a case like this, you would be replacing one player with multiple players with multiple cheaper contracts in the kind of draft capital that you could get. Now, here's the different conversation, right? What kind of draft capital could you realistically get for Derek? Here's the Christian McCaffrey trade again. In exchange for the San Francisco 49ers, second, third, and fourth round picks from this coming draft, the 2023 draft, and a fifth rounder in 2024. That is an outrageous deal. Outrageous deal for a player considered to be more versatile than Derrick Henry. A player considered to be, and I understand that it doesn't make him a better running back, but a better value, a hybrid running back wide receiver in a system like the Niners, they overpaid. And that's fine. Whatever. If you can get a team to overpay for Derrick Henry, do it. Do it now. Do it yesterday.
The question is, who is that team? Where is he a fit? Because McCaffrey was a perfect fit in San Francisco.
I mean, I tell you, I have the perfect team. I have the perfect team that could trade for Derrick Henry, and you could do to them what they've already done to you. I will explain that coming up next. We will also take your phone calls on this, 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back. NFL Combine wrapping up yesterday. A lot of good insights and information coming out of there. A lot of prospects making some money for themselves. Some people hurting their stock as well. And, of course, all the different rumors that come out. Lucas, what does Blaine call the Combine every year?
Is it the Convention of Lies?
It's the Convention of Lies, indeed. So all of these things, when you're hearing various rumors, different things reported, people having conversations with who deleted what out of their social media bios that is going to impact contract talks, all of these things, which are relevant and are newsworthy at this time of year, you always do have to take it with a grain of salt. And I preface this, any further Derrick Henry conversations, because we're going to take a break from it for a little bit and spend some time on Jeff and also talk to Mike Wilson, because what the hell, Lucas, with your basketball team? My God. I think that you have to preface all of these conversations, receiving the news that you get. You know, you can react to it however you want to, whether it's the Derek Carr signing today or Derrick Henry being shopped reports or whatever the case may be, and always run it through the prism of who benefits most from this story being out there. Who benefits most from the idea that Titans fans know that Jeffery Simmons has deleted all of his social media, or that Titans fans are hearing that Derrick Henry is getting shopped? Who benefits from that being a part of the public discourse? Then, from there, you make whatever determinations you want. Maurice in Franklin is next. Hey, Maurice.
Hey, guys. Hey, listen, thanks for taking the call. Couple things, and I know you wanted to get off the Henry thing, but, you know, the Titans, you're throwing away last year. You know, there's only one team that doesn't lose the last game of the year. And from a fan standpoint, we were in it. You know, we were in it. It gave us enthusiasm to go to the game. Let's win the next game. And we did it, and we didn't win. We lost those last 7 games. There's a lot of reasons for that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of injuries. Okay? Now, I hate first-round quarterback draft picks. To me, it's a total waste. Now, Tannehill, they won World Series with Trent Dilfer. World Series, Super Bowls. They won Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. I can't remember the guy's name. There's been a lot of Darryl LaMonica, the Mad Bomber. These are not great quarterbacks. What makes a quarterback, like even in tennis, the play action. You lose Derrick Henry, you might as well kiss the play action goodbye. Good teams that go all the way, they have an offensive line, they have a defensive line that have a couple all-pros in there. Even the defensive backs, all overrated, because you put pressure on the quarterback, you're going to see a team with a lot of interceptions. So to throw the whole thing away is wrong. And to say, well, we can get a second, third, fourth,
I do appreciate the call, Maurice, and I agree with your logic, but we do have 60 seconds on the clock for you to make your point so we can keep the callers moving. I understand that there's going to be a degree of this, no matter how many different ways we talk about the idea of blowing it up versus not blowing it up and how much of blowing it up is actually associated with Derrick Henry. But I don't think that there is any drastic discussions that need to be had right now other than he is being shopped. Tennessee basketball. Take a quick break before we come back to the Derrick Henry and Jeff Simmons discussion. Tennessee basketball now the number 5 seed in the SEC tournament coming up this week at Bridgestone Arena. Mike Wilson covers it all, and I assume has been enjoying this season because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster for the Vols as they've seen some really, really big highs and lately some disappointing results. Mike Wilson joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, bud.
Hey, yeah, I'm not a roller coaster guy. Heights and speeds to me don't make a lot of sense to be combined. So this season's been difficult for me.
Well, I'm very sorry for your hardship and for your mental, your emotional struggles that this roller coaster of the season has taken you
You're
on.
Getting motion sickness from the Vols' inconsistencies?
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Something like that.
Welcome to my life, boys. Although, not lately. Feeling pretty good lately. Big overtime win. Either way, what the hell do I make of the way that Tennessee basketball has gone through the last month? Let's start there.
Yeah, it's hard. I think part of it you attribute to a much more difficult back half of the SEC schedule. Tennessee's front half was significantly easier. They went 4-0 on the road in that stretch and then closed 0-5 in SEC road games. And obviously the final one was Auburn on Saturday, where Tennessee played its first game without Zakai Ziegler, and mixed bag in a lot of ways. That was a tough one for Tennessee anyway. They've kind of had a house of horrors down there for the most part as is. But it's hard to know what you're going to get with this team game in and game out. I mean, they're still projected as a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament because they might have – they have arguably one of the best stacked lineups of wins this season when you talk about Kansas, Texas, and Alabama. But they also just don't show up in some games and lose some really tough ones. So it's a very – not Jekyll and Hyde necessarily, but you just don't really know going in what you're going to get.
At by Mike Wilson is where you follow him. KnoxNews.com is where you read all the great work that he and his colleagues do on the University of Tennessee. You made the case recently that the 5 seed, the path through the 5 seed, may have some benefits for this squad right now, given Zakai Ziegler's absence. Explain.
Yeah, so I actually asked Rick Barnes about that on Thursday prior to the game at Auburn when, you're kind of looking at it. Tennessee was going to fall somewhere between the 3 and the 6 seed at that point. So I kind of looked at it and said, hey, is there a benefit to you if you get an extra game to kind of gel and mesh and post Zakai Ziegler life? And that to me is, putting lipstick on a pig to some extent, but Tennessee does get that slight benefit now of an opportunity to, you're banking on them winning, obviously, against South Carolina or Ole Miss in order to get that extra game. And South Carolina seems like a gimme, given Tennessee beat them by a combined 83 points. Ole Miss maybe less that way because that was a real nail-biter down there in Oxford to open SEC play. But that was my line of thinking, Tennessee is now adjusting to a new lineup, and they don't have Zakai, so maybe that's an opportunity for them to learn a little bit more about what that looks like to play without a guy that's so important.
Teams that can win the SEC tournament this weekend in Nashville are whom?
Alabama obviously going in is a definite favorite as the one. But what A&M did on Saturday, beating Alabama, said a lot about what they can do, and that's been a great team all season. I thought they were probably like 4th or 5th going into the season, but they've been really tremendous down the stretch in SEC play. Don't sleep on Kentucky right now. If Casey Wallace is like clear, good, and like ready to rock, they've been. I know everyone was knocking Cal early in the year, but that team's been great for 6 weeks for the most part. And great might be overstated, but they've been pretty good and mostly consistent.
They've been good enough to make you think they can cause somebody problems.
Yeah,
for
when
sure.
they're not playing Vanderbilt.
Great as
They have that. And this is also, though, this is one of those tournaments where that last couple games, you kind of rely on that defense, and that's where I think Tennessee has a shot. Missouri is a team that relies a lot on its offense, obviously, so you've got to keep making shots when your legs get tired. You see that kind of happen late in the tournament, but yeah, I obviously just named the top 5 seeds, but to me, I really like Kentucky rolling into this one, and I also like what A&M is doing right now.
At by Mike Wilson is where you can follow him. Tennessee basketball getting ready to get things started on Thursday in the SEC tournament. What are we doing when you get to Nashville?
I'm probably going to sleep a lot because March is really tiring, and I'm already tired.
You say that like you're going to be in town anyway, Buck.
Oh, that's right.
That's true. I'll be staying at the airport if we call it what it is because, Nashville hotels are absolutely obscene to deal with.
You mean not the Knoxville News Sentinel is keeping you outside of the perimeter to cover the basketball tournament downtown?
He's staying at my house.
He's staying at my yeah. You could bunk with Lucas and his 17 roommates and his. Lucas has 17 roommates and 5 different animals running around his house. You can stay with him.
How many cats?
Just the one.
Just the one.
Okay.
Yeah. I will see Mike Wilson this week, Buck. You will not.
I will not because I will be on a ski trip, as a matter of fact. But
why would you do that to me?
Why would I do that to you? Well, it's more because you're tired in March. I am also very tired, and the combine took it out of me, so I need a couple of days to get away.
Valid.
At by Mike Wilson. Follow him there. KnoxNews.com, where you should be reading him. This is a great time of year for you to catch up on all things basketball if you're late to the party, and Mike does it as well as anybody. Thank you, bud.
Always. Thank you, guys. See you, Lucas.
See ya.
Didn't say see you to me.
Can't wait, because he won't. He won't be seeing you.
I do. Nothing made me happier than wandering into the press box for the Music City Bowl last year and seeing Mike. We do such a bad job. Like a lot of people who are regular contributors to the show are local, and I don't see them a ton outside of like work atmosphere. So when I'm there in Indy with Josh Pate for a week, or we finally get a chance to hang out with Diana for a little bit, or people like Mike come into town for Vols games, like it's missed opportunity. To not at least buy these people a drink for as much free time as they spend giving us their insights and analysis. All right, back to the Titans conversation. How Jeff Simmons' negotiations have just changed by the strategy that he has taken on social media and the rumors of Derrick Henry being shopped by the Titans. Your reaction to that. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Another cap-saving move from the Tennessee Titans. Ian Rappaport reporting that the Titans are expected to release pass rusher Bud Dupree, who is due $17 million this season. The cut would save the Titans over $9 million in cap savings. The QB carousel has started to turn as free agent Derek Carr reportedly is expected to reach an agreement with the New Orleans Saints on a 4-year deal at some point today. Titans defensive tackle Jeffery Simmons created some buzz over the weekend when he deleted the Titans off his social media pages and then deleted some of his social media pages entirely. ESPN's Dan Graziano reported this week that the Titans and Simmons have had discussions about a long-term deal. Flipping over to the Titans offense, Mike Silver of Bally Sports with a report today that the Titans are actively shopping running back Derrick Henry. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Little bit of breaking news after the breaking news update for the start of hour number 3. Lovely to have you guys here. Lucas Panzica, myself, we're with you until 1 o'clock. Jump in if you want. 615-737-1045. So, recently, Derek Carr, as of this morning, had signed a 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. We now have contract details on that from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. Now, you, Lucas, were telling me that you would be surprised to see Derek Carr see a value of about $40 million a year since the Saints could have traded initially for his existing Raiders contract prior to him meeting with the Jets, the Panthers, before ultimately going back to the Saints. Yep?
Yes.
Okay. So he didn't quite get to $40 million a year in average annual value, but here's what he did get. 4 years, $150 million, so that's 37.5, but $100 million in guarantees. That is a substantial increase in guaranteed money than he could have initially made. So when we talk about the value of quarterbacks and people look at Tannehill at 36 point whatever next year and say, oh, couldn't imagine. Well, Derek Carr has just eclipsed that. And would Tannehill be released or traded and given an extension by another team, he would probably be in the same ballpark area in ways that would probably shock Titans fans. Numbers on quarterback contracts are not going down. The money is only getting bigger. Somebody with Derek Carr's resume was always going to see that kind of value. And for the veteran quarterback market, as teams try to acquire guys at value, how big is the jump from Derek Carr at $37.5 million if you're giving him $100 million guarantees to Aaron Rodgers at 50 or 60? This is where it gets really complicated in the team building construction, and the Saints trying to figure out things with their cap to make that work have just successfully done so.
And they are far and away, low bar, but far and away the best team in the NFC South at the moment, just for the fact that they have a quarterback.
Well, a quarterback not named Kyle Trask.
Yes.
So the Titans have Jeffery Simmons under contract, but he deleted a lot of his social media accounts. He unfollowed the Titans on Instagram in particular. He took down a bunch of pictures of himself in a Titans uniform. It's what athletes do. Athletes of that tier, where you're talking about $20+ million on their second deal, where you're dealing with high-level representation that has a playbook for multiple clients of this nature and can go about it in passive-aggressive to aggressive-aggressive various ways. So Jeff Simmons deleting his social media and taking down pictures of him in a Titans uniform and all these different things. It's not quite as extreme as A.J. Brown deleting. Now extreme is probably seems silly in retrospect. But when A.J. Brown deleted Tennessee from his Twitter bio and everybody freaked out, that was the first kind of salvo from A.J. Brown's side to let the Titans know, let John Robinson know, hey, let's pick things up a little bit here. Would like to get this thing done in a more reasonable time. How can I put pressure on you without actively pressuring you? Oh, I can do this small little tweak to my Twitter bio. Titans fans will see it. Titans fans will lose their minds. That puts a degree of pressure on the organization because, oh my God, don't you dare let my favorite player go. And they did. Now, Jeff deleting social media outright can, one, mean that it's an advancement in the process of getting a new deal done. It can serve the purpose of putting a little more pressure on the Titans, and it can also remove him from the toxicity that is social media instead of like being A.J. Brown and leaning into it and trolling and, ribbing Titans fans when he gets the opportunity, all these different things that cannot be good for your mental health.
Now, Jeffery Simmons is not anti-social media.
No.
He'll
in
be
fact,
out there.
he has been on social media. He's been out there. He's done things like trying to recruit Robbie Wagner to play for this defense.
A week ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little over a week ago.
But him removing himself from, I think it's a good move. I mean, hell, Lamar Jackson probably would have benefited from it. Now, these are the kind of things that you'll see when you're getting advice from representation. And Lamar's situation is a little different. He's negotiating for a lot more money than Jeff is. But I want you to hear this clip of, do we have it, Lucas? Rand Carthon? So Rand Carthon, we don't have the clip specifically, but he spoke to the idea of not wanting to negotiate publicly. He was asked about Tannehill specifically in his contract situation, and Rand said on principle, talking about not just Tannehill, but any contract, that whether it's Derrick Henry, Jeff Simmons, Ryan Tannehill, whomever, we're not going to negotiate publicly. We treat this thing as a family, and on it goes. So that element of it from the organization, okay, fine. But Jeff Simmons removing himself from social media, while it may not be a move that you consider to be negotiating publicly, it is a bit of a public negotiation tactic. Because it does draw attention to the fact that, Jeff Simmons has disappeared from social media, and the pictures of him and a Titan, they're not on his social media pages. What does that mean? Tell me what it means. Oh, my God, get a deal done. Similar effect without being quite as overt about it, yeah? So we'll see what happens with Jeff, and we know that they were actively pursuing a long-term extension, but the financials of that are going to be complicated. And I think that to do the kind of deal that Jeff wants, where nobody's Aaron Donald, nobody's getting $30 million a year. But I honestly think you got to want to beat Quinnen Williams and the Jets to market with this, because Quinnen Williams is only going to up the ante on the Titans and on Jeff. So you're fighting against not just Jeff and the kind of pressure that he wants to put on the idea of getting paid north of 20, probably 22, I think at this point is the most reasonable landing spot for him, where Chris Jones and Aaron Donald are at present. But to beat Quinnen Williams' contract to market should be the priority right now, because the numbers, it's like quarterbacks. It's only going to get worse.
And Williams, on paper, had a more productive year than Jeff.
I think, I think Titans fans would probably take this as a slight, but I do think Quinnen Williams is the overall more productive individual. Jeff is great within the system that they run, and they run a lot of stuff around Jeff, and Jeff is a problem. But I think Quinnen Williams individually is probably the better player.
Same draft, right? About the same age?
Yeah, because Quinnen Williams...
Yeah, third overall pick in 2019.
Yeah, so it was Quinnen Williams, then Dexter Lawrence, then I think Jeff, interior defensive lineman. Cleveland Farrell was also in that draft, but he's an edge guy, end type of dude, didn't really work out. I think Cleveland Farrell went like 5 or something disgusting.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Anyway, so Quinnen Williams contract looming overhead. Jeff Simmons not really publicly posturing, but kind of publicly posturing. And now this situation where Derrick Henry is being actively shopped by the organization, at least listening to offers. At the very least, this can mean a couple of different things. Your reaction to that, 615-737-1045 is how you join us. Tayton is in Thompson Station up next. What's up?
Hey, how y'all doing this morning?
Good.
So first and foremost, I want to say I absolutely love y'all's channel. Love listening to y'all. Y'all help me catch up on all the Titan stuff besides being on social media, especially during work. So love y'all's channel. Love listening to y'all.
Well, thank you.
I know that within our system, Derrick Henry is amazing, and I know that he has to have a huge workload in order to make a lot of productivity. But in y'all's opinion, because y'all the specialists, where else would he fit the most, considering that most offenses are now more modernized than ours? We're kind of behind the books a little bit, but in y'all's opinion, where do you think he'd fit best the most?
Thanks for the call, Tayton. Well, I mean, the answer is obvious, yeah. Atlanta.
Yeah, I figured that's where you were going when you sort of teed that up a couple segments ago.
You know how much cap space the Falcons have?
A lot.
$61 million in effective cap space. It's second only to the Bears. They could take that $10 million on Derek, put him back with Arthur Smith, a rookie quarterback contract, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. I love that.
Or they could really lean in, and if the Lamar Jackson talks don't go well, can you imagine Lamar and Derrick Henry in the same backfield?
I mean, they could pull it off.
Literally run the ball every play.
Why would you do
every single play?
Kyle Pitts would be pissed. He spent a whole season having Mariota underthrow him or overthrow him, and just now coming into a situation where they're just going to run the football. Maybe he gets a couple of carries.
But
too.
they were able to run the ball really effectively last season with Cordero Patterson and Algier. I mean, they're really able to manufacture a run game. That feels like the most natural landing spot in terms of scheme, right?
It's outside the conference. It's a system that's going to value him. It's a situation that's equipped to handle a second contract for a running back. That's still not bank breaking, right? $10 million plus on Derek is not unaffordable because they would not be assuming 16 the way that the Titans would if they kept him. A team trading for Derrick Henry would have him count against their cap just north of $10 million.
Like, even though the need at running back is not greater in Atlanta than it is in Buffalo, would it not just make more sense for Derrick Henry to be in Atlanta versus in Buffalo? Just schematically?
It makes, well, I think you can find ways to make somebody like Derrick Henry work in a variety of different ways. But the thing that makes the most sense for all of the reasons that we've just laid out is Atlanta. And I think if you get Derek moved, then Jeff is a layup. You can keep one of your most important pieces at a premium position who offers one of the things that's the most valuable in the sport right now, which is interior pressure. It might only be second to quarterback and the ability to play quarterback at a high level in the NFL right now. So all these things should be considered. And with Jeff Simmons kind of moving this forward and Jeff Simmons' side of things moving this forward the way that they have, I think today already with Bud Dupree getting cut, the dominoes have fallen and there's only so many pieces that the Titans have left to play. We'll continue to discuss this. Well, your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045. What would a trade package for Derrick Henry need to look like for you to be okay with this? We'll talk about that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So, when you have a player like Derrick Henry that means as much to a fan base as he does to Titans fans, how do you manage it? You know you're probably using the best trade asset that you have that's going to cause you the least amount of damage. Moving Jeff Simmons would be valuable and keep you from having to pay for a very expensive contract, but obviously Jeff Simmons provides a very, very valuable and difficult to come by service for your football team right now. You could trade Ryan Tannehill, and the market for that will continue to get better as teams start to decide on quarterbacks like the New Orleans Saints did today. Ryan Tannehill is going to be a great trade asset, but moving him creates more uncertainty for you at the most important position. So it's not the best possible solution to this. Trading Derrick Henry is, but there's a couple of different elements of this, a couple of different layers that come into play. It's not the same as trading A.J. Brown from a value standpoint. Moving A.J. Brown was a more costly transaction to what it is that this football team needed and, more importantly, didn't have behind him on the roster than it was to not have Derrick Henry. We talked about this throughout the course of the 2021 season. A.J. Brown was harder to replace than Derrick Henry. Was true in 21 when Derrick broke his foot, was true last year when Derrick was out there and they still weren't able to get much done. So, do you sell high on your franchise player? Because that's what he is. He's the face of the franchise. Full stop, bar none. Jeff's not that. Byard's not that. Vrabel maybe, but it's not quite the same. It does toe a difficult line because it's not just about what message it sends to the fan base for the immediate future, even if it is the thing that makes your football team the healthiest long term. It also doesn't send the best message to the locker room that you're working with right now because people rally behind Derrick. Derrick is the thing that I think gives a lot of people hope when he's out there. It gets a lot of people going. It provides juice to the sideline. I think it elevates a lot of different players. Listen to A.J. Brown talk about the point when he stopped talking to the Titans and how these different contract situations can come into play. This is applicable not just for Derrick, but for Jeff Simmons as well.
You telling me you all in the media, you're not going to trade me, you're not going to, you know what I'm saying, all this other stuff. You talking to me behind closed doors. You come, you know what I'm saying, just talking to me like, bro, you're not going nowhere. He like, you're not going nowhere. From Vrabel, from John Robinson, like all of them. Like the whole process, even tell like the whole process, bro. Like they offered me like 16 up to like 20 with incentives. And so we was like no disrespect, but like don't disrespect me, bro. Right, you feel me? Like I'm playing behind Derrick Henry, bro. Like you feel what I'm saying? Like I can go crazy, bro. Like, you know, he getting the ball 30 times. You know what I'm saying? Like my agent was like, at some point, like you gotta let him know, like, you know what I'm saying, you're not playing. So he telling me, I'm like, listen, bro, I ain't never went through this. It's what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? I paid you, you know what I'm saying? To do a job.
Yeah.
Lead me.
Yeah.
He like, stop talking to them.
So he's referencing his agent. He's saying, I pay you to do a job, lead me. And what the agent says is, well, just stop talking to them. That, now that you've had two circumstances where Derrick Henry is being shopped, and that's out there, where did that come from? And how is Derrick going to take that? How is Derrick's representation going to take that? Derrick's unique, too, when it comes to representation because he's big enough as a star in the league that he is represented by multiple entities. So whereas most players will have one agent or, I mean, even one agency at certain places like CAA where it's big enough, IMG, WME, those kind of bigger shops, for lack of a better term. Derrick is represented not just by CAA, but by Athletes First. So you're dealing with dual representation on the economy that is Derrick Henry and all the different implications of that if you move him. So you got a lot of different interests at play. How is Derrick going to receive the news? Because you know we've seen it by now. It's been out there for, the better part of a day from Mike Silver with his credibility, now at Bally Sports, formerly the NFL Network, saying, hey, this was a big discussion point of the Combine. They're listening to offers on Derrick Henry. They're shopping Derrick Henry right now. And by the way, I add parenthetically, they should be. How Derek handles that, probably going to be the good soldier type of situation. How Jeff handles that, well, he's just taking himself off social media. So it's not going to be as contentious, or at least publicly contentious, which is what they're trying to avoid, as A.J. Brown was. Because A.J. Brown wasn't taking himself off social media. He was weaponizing it. So I think that there's a lot of this different stuff that's in play. And then there's the unknown of Rand Carthon. I mean, they just kind of let Rand Carthon know, hey, your first big test here, we're about to put it to you. You got through your combine. You were tired of your quarterback questions. All right. Well, the next time you speak at media, it's going to be all about not just the quarterback, but it's going to be about Derek. It's going to be about Jeff. It's going to be about all the different things. It's going to be about, are you moving 11? Are you trading up with 11? Are you trying to acquire more first-round capital or more early capital? What is your plan here? How are you going to fix this? What are the answers, please, Mr. GM? And their position, not publicly negotiating on any of these guys. I think it's going to be so strange to see how the players kind of react to this stuff, or so just kind of foreign, because it's the first time that a lot of these dudes have been through this, and these guys weren't drafted by Rand Carthon. He shouldn't have any overwhelming allegiances to them other than to compliment them on the body of work that they've had at different stages of their career, whether that be Tannehill, Derek, or Jeff. And so how much of this, and coming down to like tiebreaker questions, we spent a whole week talking about who wins the tie if Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon are on different sides of an argument. Well, thus far, the messaging around that has all been, well, it's kind of deferential to Mike. Systems in place. I'm coming in here to see how I can trim the fat around them. That doesn't mean that he's taking over necessarily, talking about Rand. That means that he's working and consulting with Mike on the various decisions that are going to be made. And right now, that process sounds very deferential to the head coach. Now, with all this stuff and with Bud Dupree being released today, how does it impact their draft? We won't know. I don't think we'll have like advance notice. Well, I guess that depends on Derek. And with free agency right around the corner, there's no clear way to predict a timeline on these things, so we won't even mess with that. But I think looking at the different options that are on the table for them, it has felt so just obvious that they're just going to stick at 11 and take a tackle, or at least so common sense wise that they would stick at 11 and take a tackle, that we've almost forgotten, whether that be media, fans, or otherwise, how many different ways they can go about this and address this outside of just sticking and picking up the best available player at that position. Well, Paris Johnson Jr., I knew he was going to test well, and he looked really, really good over the weekend in Indy. Was Anthony Richardson the most clear and obvious player who helped themselves this week at the Combine? Sure sounds like it at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the running back class was always going to be fun. I didn't see anybody test like otherworldly. Bijan Robinson will be the talk of the position group. The edge guys, how fast they run. We talked about Nolan Smith on Friday and Byron Young of Tennessee, guys who are out here making themselves money. The wide receivers didn't overwhelmingly like blow anybody's doors off with the testing. Darnell Washington did, and even if that one-handed snag he made was out of bounds, it's still freakish athleticism and size from a guy who you just can't teach that and is going to be difficult to defend at the next level. I think Anthony Richardson, though, was the player who seemed like for everything that happened around him, we knew he was going to test well, but not literally record-setting.
I know he broke records, but yeah, you just said it. You knew this was going to happen. You know that guy can jump high and run fast. It's never been the issue with him.
Nope.
And you could have predicted that you were going to come out of the Combine talking about, Richardson kind of moving up the QB chart, maybe QB3. And I just look around like we knew this was going to happen. What's changed? What's changed about his decision-making and his inconsistencies when he was actually playing football and not running in tights?
So, running in tights, I love that. And that's the same discussion around Will Levis. Like, he's going to look good when he gets out there. He's just throwing routes on air.
I know, but I was like pre-frustrated by the Anthony Richardson thing because I knew that this was going to happen.
Now, Frankie on YouTube says AR's just another Cam. Cam Newton was The idea that that's just casually being tossed out there. Have you completely forgotten what the hell Cam Newton was when he came into the league? Cam Newton was unstoppable. That's nonsense. And also, a much better player at the quarterback position than Anthony Richardson is at this particular time. To say just another Cam. Cam is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. Not just in college football, but when he got to the league and was literally jumping over people and making Carolina a force to be reckoned with. Just what an asinine comment to come out and say, just another Cam.
Anthony Richardson is a big, fast-running quarterback. So you can say that without saying, he's like Cam Newton. That Auburn team that Cam Newton won the national championship with had no business being a national championship contender. None. You look at the NFL talent that came out of that Auburn team. It's hardly any.
I think so. Here are the records that Anthony Richardson broke at the NFL Combine. A new Combine record for a quarterback in the vertical jump, 40.5 inches, and 10-foot 9-inch distance in the broad jump. He ran the 40-yard dash in 4.44 seconds, which is projected to be the fastest time for quarterback in this draft class.
How many inches on the broad jump, you said?
10 feet, 9 inches.
Okay, so how many yards is that?
So that would be 3 yards and some.
Okay, so if he broad jumps from the line of scrimmage, then he'll set up about 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7. That's good.
It is good.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know what? Hey, efficiency, baby.
But that's what I mean. Like, these numbers are eye-popping because it is amazing that a human can do that. But what does it change about how he plays quarterback? Why does that move him up? It is so beyond me.
No. Okay. So breathe. It doesn't move him up among talent evaluators. It only affirms what talent evaluators already know. You know who it moves him up with? Mock draft people. Now, there are plenty of mock draft people who are credible. Todd McShay talks to people.
Let's not pretend that pro day and combine testing do not impact the draft.
They do, absolutely.
Like, it's not just, I know we're buzzing about Anthony Richardson because it's amazing what he did, but like.
No, so you want the difference between, let's say, combine and pro day for a quarterback, right? What's happening in a pro day for a quarterback? You're working with your quarterback coach, guys you played with in college, on scripted plays that are specifically designed to showcase your abilities at the position. It is very rigid. It is very structured. It is much more beneficial to the player. That's why a lot of these guys don't throw at the combine, and they will opt instead for their pro day if they even throw at all. The combine is different. Those are not coaches you know. Those are not wide receivers that you largely know, other than you met them in the hallway and you know they're going to be running routes for you. It's, hey, throw this route to this guy, make it happen. The guys who throw at the combine, seeing Richardson be able to operate in that space, I think matters, even if it is just routes on air. Now, a different kind of a discussion around, let's say, all right, so let's branch this out a little bit. Anthony Richardson versus Malik Willis. What is the biggest difference as prospects? Because the parallels, the talking point parallels are being drawn between those two. Hyper-athletic player at the position that's a project, has all the different kinds of physical attributes that you think you can make work, especially if you can get them at value. What's the difference between those two players as prospects?
The offenses they played in?
The offense that they played in, but not just that, how they reacted in the offenses that they played in. Go back and watch some of Malik. And I understand that it's a very, very basic, high school offenses at some point are running more complex systems than Hugh Freeze at Liberty.
And quality of opponent.
Quality of opponent matters.
Like Coastal Carolina versus Georgia.
And also quality of teammates matters. There's a difference between the players at Liberty and Florida, okay? But instead of running an offense when the play would break down or even at the slightest sign of peril, what did Malik do? Well, the same thing that they're trying to talk him out of doing in the pros. Take off and run. Work through it. Try and make the offense work before you try and take this thing unto yourself, because you know you can't, because the quality of opponent is less than. You are the best athlete on the field. Make it happen. Anthony Richardson, when you watch him, even if the inaccuracies are what they are, and they're there. I think the biggest similarity between him and Malik is that and when we talked to Mark Schofield about this was what he said, the eyes are not married to the feet. The footwork matters for them. And if you are trying to improve accuracy, to teach them how to feather throws and things of that, instead of just gunning it the way that Richardson wants to, then that stuff is something that has to be learned, has to be workshopped, has to be coached. Anthony Richardson, though, would make a greater effort to work through the offense, even if he wasn't making the play. And when you talk to talent evaluators about that puts him at a much different level than Malik, even if the results or even if the comparisons are the same. That is why we're talking about the difference between a clear and obvious first-round pick in Richardson versus Malik, who fell to the third and had to be traded up to get.
Yeah, I'm not comparing Richardson to Malik.
The audience, there are people in the. It's not. I'm not. I'm not doing the show for you.
You can put traits up next to each other. And if people want to do that, that's fine. But that doesn't matter. What Malik Willis, how he stacks up against Anthony Richardson, does not matter. I'm talking about Anthony Richardson versus the other three quarterbacks that are going to be first-round picks.
So with that, you would take, I guess, so who's he separating from? Like, we knew that he was going to test better than Will Levis.
Mm-hmm.
Is the testing so outrageous that it's enough to put him over Will Levis? Maybe.
That's what it's sounding like to me. From listening to post combine reactions, podcasts, reading, that's what it sounds like to me. That's the feeling. That Anthony Richardson is being talked about in a much more positive light than Will Levis.
I mean, it's such a weird spot. So like Carolina, right? Carolina's got all the tools to develop a quarterback there, right? They have Frank Reich. They've got an offensive line that works. They've got a running game that works. They've got Josh McCown, who is very, very respected. In fact, the Texans kept trying to hire him without having coaching experience to be their head coach. But he has a lot of respect from people around the league as far as quarterback development is concerned. They played themselves out of one of these Colts or Texans picks, top 5, because they had a little juice at the end of the year. And throughout the second half of the season, really, after they fired Matt Rule. Does Carolina, with a need at starting quarterback, do the Anthony Richardson thing and sign a veteran? Because that's a situation that I can envision. If you go Jake Brisket it for a year, go get Jacoby Brissett or Baker Mayfield. Well, they've already done the Baker Mayfield. They're probably not going to do Baker Mayfield again in Carolina, but you understand my point. Get a veteran stopgap. Try and coach Richardson up. Maybe he's ready halfway through the season, or at least can give you a better chance to win some games in a division that's very, very much on the table right now. Going to be fascinating to watch. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is how you do so. We'll update the polls and talk about a very concerning story in the NBA coming up next. So a story that we have not gotten to today, and if you missed any of the show, by the way, check out the podcast. All 3 hours available for you there. Be talking a lot about combine stuff tomorrow, given that the news cycle kind of caught us up today. But a story we haven't gotten to is what's happening with Ja Morant. So he got suspended for 2 games by the NBA. Did you see the initial post that he had on Instagram? It's him with the gun on his IG Live. It is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination where you're on Instagram Live, you're flashing a gun over the weekend. You are suspended by the league because, of course, the optics are horrendous on that. And, I need a little bit of breaking Titans news. Do you want to purposefully run me over? Thank you.
Breaking Titans news on 104.5 The Zone.
Dove Kleiman on Twitter. The Titans plan to wear their Oilers throwback uniforms for a home game in the 2023 season. I got a lot of questions about the Oilers throwbacks. That was moving in the right direction that way anyway this year. And officially, now they will wear the throwbacks for one home game. Now, whether Derrick Henry is in a throwback uniform or whether any of you who are telling me you'll never go to another Titans game as long as you breathe, if they trade Derrick Henry, are there to see it, different matter. But yeah, a little bit of breaking news there. Okay, Ja. So there's no timetable for his return, apparently, is the thing that caught me up. I watched a little bit of Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of Memphis, his press conference. I guess that would have been last night. And they talked about the how tough a moment it is. The quote was, he's going to take some time away to get help and work on learning better methods of dealing with stress and his overall well-being. Now, that seems like something different than suspending him for, being reckless with the optics of flashing a gun on Instagram Live. That sounds like something more serious. Now, apparently, there was a private conversation held with Ja in the front office, and the details of that, Taylor Jenkins was not willing to disclose. Quote, we love him. We want what's best for him. We support him. It's going to be a difficult process, but we've got a great group to get through this. So, I don't know what's going on with Ja. I don't know why this is something that, is being taken as essentially they're treating it almost as if he's seeking, mental help. And, I don't know what's going on in Ja's life that prompted the video or something like that. And I wasn't watching the IG Live other than to see it clipped afterwards, but it's unclear as to how long he's going to be away. And it sounds like it could be more than the 2 games. And last night was the first that he's already been suspended for. So a situation to monitor with the star player for the Grizzlies, one of the best teams in the West right now.
Jake on YouTube says the timing of that positive PR by the Titans absolutely terrifies me. So is it the Titans putting that out?
No, I saw it from Dove Kleiman, which, everybody knew that they were going to wear the throwback uniforms at some point this year, but that's specifically just for one home game that's being mentioned. Trippin' Titan says, was that really breaking Titans news? You guys care more about the damn uniform combos than anything else, it would seem, based on the messages that I get on social media. So, yeah, I think so. Roger says, flashing a gun, I need more details. Well, you can look up the story online, because in the meantime, time for polls.
All right, Dan. I reckon I'll talk about a poll update. This is Carl Childers. There's a young feller. I think he's got the final numbers. Here's the producer of the Buck Rising show. A feller named Lucas Panzeker. Got any mustard and biscuits?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Big Jeff deleting the Titans off social media, and in some cases, deleting his entire social media accounts. What has he deleted, by the way? His Instagram?
I am looking at his Twitter right now.
So his Twitter's still up?
His Twitter is up, but it's not verified anymore. No, that's not Jeff. Okay, Jeff deleted his Twitter.
So he deleted Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, looks like it.
Big deal, little deal, or no deal. 45% go little deal. 35% say it's no deal. 20% go big deal.
Little deal. Little deal. It's something. It's newsworthy. No, whether it's good or bad, I don't think you have to jump to conclusions on that, but it's news.
Would you be okay with the Titans trading Big Jeff to move up for a quarterback in the draft? 77% say they would not, over 2,000 votes.
If they were sold on Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, if they said, this is my quarterback, bar none, yeah, hell yes. Hell yes.
Yeah, Jay says if the Titans feel Stroud is their franchise guy, yes. Everybody's leaning Stroud in all of this. Is that just because of the Ohio State thing? Like, what if they wanted to trade up for Bryce Young?
I personally would be fine with that. I mean, obviously, my concerns are the same concerns as anybody. Can he physically hold up? And if he's legitimately unprecedented, like if he comes out 5'9", 190 something, and he's the smallest quarterback at the position like ever, then I'm a little more skeptical because Stroud, I think, is the safer prospect of the two. But Young is clearly special.
Which prospect had the best NFL combine? Kenneth says Anthony Richardson. Rick says BYU's Blake Freeland.
Well, I think that is there's a couple of different prospects that you can look at that. Richardson, I think everybody knew Richardson was going to have the mind-blowing numbers. Our buddy Zach Lyons texted me, John Gaines helped himself the most at the combine, a super athletic guard from UCLA, to which I'm about to text him back, LOL at the idea that the guard from UCLA is the thing that I was going to do on Sports Talk Radio today.
Darnell Washington also showing off his hands. Like, I think that dude is going to make some team very, very happy.
I mean, we're talking about potentially 3 first-round tight ends. I don't think Washington is one of them, but somebody may get an urge.
So you're talking Kincaid, Mayer, and Musgrave.
Yes, I think.
Yeah. Is Tennessee capable of winning the SEC tournament this week in Nashville? 58% say no.
I would probably agree with the majority. But, I mean, if they think that they give themselves a great opportunity by trying to figure out things without Ziegler and playing a few extra games, then maybe it's not the worst thing in the world.
Josh says absolutely. They're capable of beating any team in the country. Will they is a different question. I honestly doubt it. Zach says, are they capable? Yes. Will they? Absolutely.
2 different conversations. BVS, it's starting to palpate. It's starting to seep in to the basketball discussion. Those the polls?
Those the polls.
Excellent. Good job by you. A lot of fun today. Appreciate you guys spending your time with us. Lucas and I will be with you tomorrow. Then it's Lucas and Rhett Bryan and Keith Bullock the rest of the week. We will talk a lot about the combine discussions, players that we kept an eye on, guys that we were surprised, maybe some people that we learned about for the first time with the number of prospects that was up in Indy. Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus will join us, and we'll have a great time doing that. Meanwhile, I will talk to you tonight on Primetime, and you can hang out with Blaine and Mickey because they're next.